I laughed, shaking my head. Very funny. Leon now opened the door, but he didn't. Instead, he leaned against it, High's expression unreadable, fingers grazing. The lock like he was considering. A strange chill crept up my spine. The room suddenly felt too small, too quiet. Leon. I tried again. My voice a knot lower. This isn't funny anymore. His lips curved. Not in the way I expected. Who said I was joking? My stomach twisted. Something was off. I took a step back, suddenly hyper-aware of how alone we were the rest of the family was. Downstairs, the music from the party, barely reaching this part of the house. No one would hear if I called out. No one would know. A slow, sinking feeling settled inside me. Leon. I forced a laugh, trying to keep my voice light, stop messing around. He just watched me, dark eyes, unreadable. Do you trust me? The question caught me off guard. My throat tightened. He had never looked at me like this before. Of course, I said carefully. His gaze didn't waver. Then don't be scared. I wasn't scared. Not yet, but the way he turned the lock, slow, deliberate, final, sent a sharp shiver down my spine. I should have never come into this room. Me. Breath hitched as the soft click of the lock echoed in the quiet room. This wasn't a joke. A slow creeping awareness spread through my body. Something was different about Leon tonight. The way he stood between me and the door. The way his dark eyes lingered a second too long. I forced a nervous laugh, trying to shake, the heaviness pressing against my chest. Okay, you've had your fun now. Open the door. He didn't move. Leon, my voice sharpened. I said, open the door. His head tilted slightly, like he was studying me. Like he was amused by the sudden shift in my tone. You didn't answer my question, murmured. I blinked. What do you trust me? Something about the way he said it made my pulse jump. Of course I trusted him. He was my cousin, my favorite cousin growing up, the one who always saved me from trouble, who stood up for me when I needed him. But this was different. He swallowed. What are you doing? His lips pressed into a thin line, his fingers tapping against the doorframe. Just something's been on my mind lately. I crossed my arms, trying to act unaffected, even as my skin prickled with unease, and locking the door was necessary for this conversation. Maybe, Leon, do you ever think about it? He interrupted my brows, furrowed. Think about what his eyes held, mine, in a way that made my stomach flip as a chill spread through me, slow and deliberate, like ice settling into my bones. I forced a shaky laugh. You're acting weird. Is this some kind of prank? Did someone put you up to this? I glanced toward the window, half expecting to see someone peeking in, waiting for me to freak out. But we were alone, completely, utterly alone. Leon sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's not a joke. I've been thinking about it for a while. I stepped back instinctively, but there was nowhere to go. Thinking about what his gaze flickered over me. And suddenly the air in the room felt different, thicker, charged. This, he said simply. A beat of silence. The walls of the small guest room felt like they were closing, and the distant sound of laughter and music from downstairs felt too far away. I shook my head, suddenly desperate to break whatever spell it settled between us. This is crazy. You're crazy. Just open the door and let's forget this ever happened. He didn't move. Leon, my voice was barely a whisper. Now this isn't funny. I'm not laughing. My heart pounded so loud I could feel it in my throat. Because for the first time in my life, I realized Leon wasn't just my cousin anymore. At least not to him. I could hear my own heartbeat. Loud, fast, and even Leon hadn't moved. But something about the way he stood there watching me, like he was waiting for something, made me skin burn with niece. This is insane, I muttered, trying to stud my voice. You're my cousin. His jaw tensed. I know. Then open the door. For a moment I thought he would. His fingers twitched at his sighed, and I held my breath, waiting for the sound of the lock turning. But then he took a step closer. If flinched, he noticed his expression, flickered something between frustration and something else I couldn't name. "You're scared of me now." His voice was quieter this time, almost hurt. I swallowed hard. "No, this is wrong." His lips pressed into a thin line, but he didn't argue. He just stood there silent, watching me, like he was trying to figure something out. I forced myself to move, taking a slow step toward the door, but he shifted slightly, just enough to block my way. I clenched my fists. "Leon?" His eyes locked onto mine. "You never noticed. Did you notice what I snapped?" Suddenly too tired for whatever game he was playing. His jaw flexed like he was weighing his next word. Carefully, that I was different with you. My stomach flipped different. I suddenly remembered all the moments that hadn't meant anything until now. The way he was always near me at family gatherings, even when the other cousins were off doing their own thing. The way his eyes lingered just a second longer than they should have. The way he always found an excuse to touch my arm, my shoulder, my back. The realization made my breath hitch. "You're imagining things," I whispered more to myself than to him. Leon exhaled, shaking his head. "Am I?" I took another step back. But the room was too damn small. There was nowhere to go, no space to put between us. My hands clenched at my sides. "What do you want from me?" He didn't answer. Not right away. Then softly, too softly, he said, "Just say, you never felt it too." My heart stopped. The words sucked the air straight out of my lungs, leaving me elated. I should have shut it down right there, should have laughed. Called him insane, forced him to unlock the door and forget this ever happened, but I didn't, because my silence was too loud, and Leon heard it. I should have answered. I should have said something. Anything to make this moment disappear. But I couldn't. The words wouldn't come. Leon's eyes darkened. Hiss. Shoulders tense, like he was bracing himself for whatever I was about to say. But I had nothing. Nothing but silence. And he heard it, felt it. His lips parted. But he didn't speak right away. He just watched me like he was trying to read. Between the lines of my breathing. "You're not saying anything," he murmured. "Is wallowed because there's nothing to say. Liar." My pulse spiked. "Leon, stop, you feel it." His voice was quiet, but it cut through me like a blade. "You just don't want to admit it." I took a sharp step back, my legs hitting the small wooden desk behind me. "Trapped. Do you hear yourself right now?" I forced a laugh, but it sounded shaky, unconvincing. "This is insane. You're insane." "Then why aren't you?" Screaming, the air ripped from my lungs. It blinked. What? Leon tilted his head slightly. "You could have screamed for help the second I locked that door." My chest tightened. "You could have called someone?" He continued, his voice steady, unreadable. "But you didn't." I clenched my jaw because I didn't want to make a scene. His gaze burned into me. "Or because you don't really want me to stop." A deep, twisting ache spread through me. An ache I didn't ask for because he wasn't completely wrong number. "No, stop." I shook, my head furiously forcing myself to breathe. "You're my cousin," I whispered. Leon exhaled sharply, raking a hand through his hair. And that never changed. How I felt, I stared at him. Horrified, furious, and something else I refused to name. "You don't get to say that," I snapped, my voice breaking. "But it's the truth." The way he said it, calm, certain, unapologetic, made my knees feel weak. I wanted to run. I should have run, but I didn't, because somewhere deep inside me, I knew this moment had been coming for a long, long time. I just hadn't been ready to face it. And now I had no choice. My breath felt trapped in my chest, caught between logic and something I didn't want to name. Lion's words still hung in the air, heavy and capable. You don't really want me to stop? I wanted to scream, to throw something at him, to do anything that would make this moment disappear. But all I could do was stand there, frozen, my heart betraying me with its frantic, uneven rhythm. This isn't right, it whispered, my voice barely audible. Lone exhaled, slowly, his fingers tightening into fists at his sides. Then tell me you don't feel anything. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. His jaw clenched at my silence. A humorless chuckle escaped. Him as he ran a hand through his dark hair, that's what I thought. Leon, stop this, I pleaded, my voice cracking. We can't. We're family, this. It's not normal. Tilted his head, his gaze locking onto Minna. Unwavering. What's normal? Then pretending I don't look at you differently than I do everyone else. Acting like I don't notice the way you hold your breath when I get too close. I stiffened. He noticed that my stomach twisted violently. I don't. He started, but he cut me off. You do, he murmured, stepping closer. His presence suffocating. You've just been fighting it. I backed up instinctively, my spine hitting the desk again. Nowhere to go. His eyes searched mine, waiting, begging for me to say something to deny it, to give him any reason to stop, but my silence was louder than any words I could have said. A muscle in his jaw ticked, tell me to leave. I swallowed hard, trying to find my voice, tell him to leave, say it, but I didn't. I couldn't, because some twisted part of me, some dark, forbidden, unspoken part of me, didn't want him to. Leon's breath shuddered as he reached past me, and for a fleeting second, I thought he was going to touch me. But instead, the lock clicked open. I froze. He had unlocked the door. I could leave, I should leave. But my legs didn't move. Leon Tuca. Slow step back, his expression unreadable. Go, he whispered. If you really want to. I should have turned and walked out without looking back. But my feet stayed planted on the ground, my pulse hammering in my ears. Because even with the door wide open, I wasn't sure I wanted to. I stood at the threshold, staring at the open door like it was some kind of test Leon had given me, a way out, and escape. So why wasn't it moving? My fingers twitched at my sides, nails digging into my palms, trying to force my body to react, but my heart was hammering louder than my thoughts, louder than my logic. Lion didn't say anything, he just stood there, waiting, watching. I turned to him slowly, my breath unsteady. Why did you unlock it? A ghost. A smirk touched his lips. Because I wanted to see if you'd actually leave. A sharp exhale left me, my stomach twisting. Knew he knew that. Even though my mind was screaming at me to run, my body was betraying me. I swallowed hard. You think this is a game? His smirk faded. Number. But I think you've spent too long pretending this isn't real. A lump formed in my throat. This isn't real, Lon, this is. I swallowed hard. This is just in your head. His dark eyes flickered. With something unreadable, is it? I hated how that one question made my pulse spike. It should have stormed out. I should have shoved past him and never looked back. But instead, I stayed. The silence between us was thick, almost suffocating. The tension crackled like an approaching storm, dangerous, inevitable. I licked my lips, my voice barely a whisper. We shouldn't be doing. This. Lon stepped closer. And I let them then leave, he murmured, his voice low, taunting. No one's stopping you. I hated him. I hated him for putting this choice in my hands. But I hated myself even more for hesitating. Because the truth was, I wasn't sure I wanted to leave, not anymore. Not after this.